The massive surge in professional ghosting we are seeing this year is not just a bad manners, it is a calculated structural form of corporate rebellion. Right now, CEOs and the traditional HR departments are sitting in the boardroom completely bewildered. They are staring at the data showing that their top candidates are vanishing mid-interview. They are looking at the empty desk where employees were supposed to be sitting. And 2026 office mandates become more rigid. Employees are fighting back using the single most destructive weapon they possess: absolute, impenetrable silence. Before I break down exactly why the traditional 2 weeks notice has officially been replaced by total silence, and how you must adapt to this brutal new labor dynamics, hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell. I post daily videos showing you exactly how to navigate the global labor market using cold, hard engineering logic. You do not want to miss this blueprint. You have probably noticed your LinkedIn inbox becoming a graveyard lately, but there is a hidden systematic reason for the radio silence. Companies are using draconian methods to force staff back to the desk, and in response, the workforce is checking out without saying a single word. Grab a notebook. Today we will explore how 2026 became the year of the ultimate power move, and why strict attendance policies are destroying the very companies that enforce them. Welcome back, I'm Dr. HR. To understand why my approach to the human capital is aggressively different from the emotional, outdated advice given by the legacy management consultant, you must understand my underlying architecture. I hold a PhD in human resources, a master's from prestigious Tata Institute of Social Sciences TISS, and a bachelor's in computer engineering. I do not look at the employee behavior through a moral lens. I do not care if ghosting is polite or rude. I look at the behavior as an algorithmic response to the systematic incentive. Operating on the ground here in Dubai since 2010, consulting for apex corporate entities and the global capability centers, I see exactly how the machine works. When a system applies blunt, uncalculated force to a dynamic asset, that asset will find the path of least resistance to escape. In the current labor market, that path of least resistance is ghosting. Let us deconstruct the high-stakes narrative of the LinkedIn graveyard, the Contrarian Revelation of the corporate rebellion, and the future shock warning that every executive must hear before they lose their apex operators. Phase 1. The high-stake narrative, the LinkedIn graveyard. We must first establish the operational reality of the 2026 talent market. If you are a recruiter, a hiring manager, or a team lead, you are currently experiencing the highest rate of candidate and the employee drop-off in the recorded corporate history. Your LinkedIn inbox is a graveyard of unread messages. Candidates accept the job offer, sign the digital contract, and simply never log on into their onboarding portal on Monday morning. Current employees leave for the weekend and never return, ignoring calls, blocking emails, and erasing their association with your firm. Traditional HR departments are blaming the workforce. They call this generation unprofessional or lacking resilience. That is a catastrophic misdiagnosis. The workforce has not forgotten how to communicate. They have made a calculated decision that communicating with a rigid corporate entity has a negative return of investment ROI. That is the ultimate power move. For decades, corporations held the monopoly on ghosting. Applicant tracking system ATS would absorb millions of resumes, and company would systematically ghost 99% of the candidate without a second thought. They justified it as an operational efficiency. They claimed they simply did not have the bandwidth to reply to everyone. The workforce learned the lesson perfectly. The talent has now adopted the exact same algorithmic efficiency. When a highly skilled data architect or an AI strategist receives an aggressive mandate to return to a physical cubicle for 50 hours a week, they run a risk to reward calculation. If they engage in a debate with HR, they will be met with a corporate doublespeak. If they submit a formal 2 weeks to 4 weeks notice, they risk being escorted out of the building immediately or subjected to an agonizing high-pressure counter-offer process. The mathematically optimal move, the action that preserves their cognitive bandwidth and protects their peace, is simply to vanish. They treat the corporations the exact same way the corporation treats them, as a disposable interface. Phase 2, the Contrarian Revelation, the death of the 2 weeks to 4 weeks notice. We must now execute a deep dive into the specific catalyst driving this behavior. The massive surge in professional ghosting we are seeing this year is a direct proportional response to the rigid 2026 office mandates. The return to the office, the RTO war, is no longer a negotiation. It has become an ideological battleground. Legacy CEOs, desperate to justify massive commercial real estate leases in a financial hub, have deployed draconian attendance policies. They are using IP tracking, badge swipe monitoring, and AI-driven surveillances to ensure human bodies are occupying physical chairs. They are tying bonuses and promotion directly to the geographic presence rather than operational output. This brings us to the Contrarian Revelation. Ghosting is a calculated form of corporate rebellion, the collapse of the psychological contract. The 2 to 4 week notice was a social construct built on a mutual trust. It was an unwritten rule that if an employee provided a smooth transition, the employer would provide a strong reference and a dignified exit. In 2026, that psychological contract has completely shattered. Employees watched companies execute mass layoff via 6 a.m. automated emails, revoking system access before the employee even woke up. The corporation proved that it does not provide a 2 to 4 weeks notice when it severs the relationship. Therefore, the apex operator realized that offering a notice is an asymmetrical risk. Why should they offer a transitional grace to a system that views them as a line item on a spreadsheet? When a company issues an ultimatum, return to the office 5 days a week or face termination, the elite employees does not argue. They do not write a passionate essays on company's Slack channel about work-life balance. They silently open the terminal, secure a remote USD-denominated contract from a global competitor, shut their corporate laptop, and walk away. The silence is the message. The silence is the rebellion. Phase 3. The future shock warning, resignation by silence. If you are an executive or a manager and you think your company's new strict attendance policy is working because the parking lot is full, you're suffering from a dangerous illusion. You need to look at the skyrocketing resignation by silence data. We are witnessing a fundamental shift where workers are choosing ghosting over confrontation to reclaim their autonomy, the illusion of compliance. When you mandate strict office attendance, you force a division in your workforce. The bottom 20% of your talent pool, the disposable administrator who have no external options and no specialized skill, will comply. They will swipe their badges, they will sit in the cubicle, they will give you the illusion of a functioning company. But the top 10%, the infrastructure architect, the AI implementers, the multi-cloud engineers who actually drive your valuation will vanish. Apex operators do not tolerate unnecessary friction. If their role can be executed flawlessly from a high-tech villa in Dubai South, forcing them to commute 90 minutes down the Sheikh Zayed Road to sit in a noisy, open-plan office is not building culture. It is an insult to their operational efficiency, the autonomy premium. This is a direct consequence of the rigid office mandate that ignored the future of the work. Professionals in 2026 value the autonomy premium above all other metrics. They prioritize sovereign control over their time, their geography, and their deep work environment over a marginal increase in base salary. When you strip them of that autonomy, they do not fight you. Fighting requires emotional investment. They simply redirect their cognitive capital to a decentralized firm that respect their output. Resignation by silence trend is warning siren. By the time you realize your best engineer has ghosted you, they have already deployed their intellectual property to your biggest competitor. You cannot counter-offer a ghost. You can negotiate with silence. You cannot negotiate with silence. Phase 4. The economics of the power move. We must analyze the strict macroeconomic reality of why ghosting is an effective strategy for the employee and a devastating loss for the employer. The leverage asymmetry. In the past, ghosting an employer was dangerous because the employers controlled the local market. If you burned a bridge with a major bank in the DIFC, word would spread and you would be blacklisted locally. In the 2026 labor market, local blacklists are entirely irrelevant for the top-tier talent. Modern Apex operators is a global entity. They are leveraging the fractional executive model we have discussed previously. They hold 3 different contracts with firms in Austin, London, and Singapore. If they ghost a local UAE firm that is forcing them into a rigid RTO mandate, the local firm's anger has zero impact on the employee's global cash flow. The leverage has inverted. The employee is operating in an infinite global market, while the rigid employer is restricting its talent pool to a 30-kilometer geographic radius around their office building. The cost of the void. When an employee goes, they take the structural architecture with them instantly. The company is left staring at the blank terminal. It takes the corporation 45 days to hire a replacement, another 30 days to onboard them, and 6 months for the new hire to untangle the undocumented mess left behind. The corporation loses millions in operational latency. This is the exact price tag of enforcing a rigid attendance mandate. You traded your intellectual property for a badge swipe. Phase 5, the corporate correction, how to survive. If you are a corporate leader watching this, you must pivot your architecture immediately before your talent pool evaporates into the ether. You cannot stop ghosting by adding more punitive clauses to your HR contract. You must redesign the incentives. 1. Eradicate geographic mandate. You must completely decouple outputs from geography. The requirement to be in a physical room must be tied exclusively to a highly specific collaborative events that mathematically require physical proximity, such as whiteboarding a structural pivot or closing a high-friction enterprise deal. If the task is a deep work execution, attempting to dictate where the execution happens is a display of managerial incompetence. 2. Manage the output, not the input. We return to the core thesis of the curator paradigm. You must stop auditing the input, hours at the desk, badge swipes, and exclusively audit the output, code shipped, revenue generated, latency reduced. If an employee delivers 100% of their operational requirement on Wednesday, you do not care where they are on Thursday and Friday. 3. Rebuild the psychological contract. If you want candidate and employees to treat you with professional courtesy, you must be the first mover. Stop using automated, no-reply emails to reject candidate after 3 rounds of interview. Stop treating layoffs as sudden, brutal server disconnection. You must build a culture of high trust, transparency. For the professionals executing the ghosting, understand your leverage but wield it with a surgical precision. Ghosting is a toxic, draconian employer is a valid protection mechanism, but ghosting must never become your default conflict resolution protocol. If you ghost a genuine sponsor or an elite network, you will destroy your own algorithmic reputation. Use the silence as a weapon of last resort, not a habit. Look closely at the mechanics of the modern workplace. The rules of engagement has been permanently rewritten. The era of blind corporate loyalty, the 2 weeks to 4 week notice, and the mandatory cubicle is over. The massive surge in professional ghosting is not a sign of a broken generation. It is a sign of a highly intelligent workforce executing a risk-adjusted response to obsolete management tactics. If a company treats an employee like a disposable number, the employee will treat the company like a disposable app. Delete, block, vanish. Corporation must choose. You can demand absolute physical presence and watch your apex talent silently walk out the door, or you can embrace extreme autonomy and build an empire. Process the data, execute the strategy, and I'll see you at the top.